Andrea from the team at We Love Baking. Today I'm going to show you how I make my Eton Mess mini pavlovas. This is a bit of a twist on the classic Eton Mess, served in a gorgeous little mini pavlova nest instead. Let's get baking. To start with, we're going to turn our oven on. So I'm going to turn my oven on to 120 Celsius while I prepare my meringue. So while my oven's preheating, I've also got prepared my baking tray, and on here you can see I have a piece of parchment. I have drawn some circles. I've drawn 8 circles on there. I've just used a cookie cutter to do that with, but the important thing is you draw the circles on the underneath for your parchment. So when you put it up, when you put it down and you pipe on top of it, you're not going to get pencil marks on the underneath of your meringue, because no one wants that. I also have prepared a piping bag with a star-shaped nozzle. I've chosen a star one today because I like the effect that gives me for my meringues. And finally, I have my mixing bowl. Now, obviously it's clean, but when you make a meringue, you don't want any kind of grease whatsoever on your mixing bowl or your whisk. It's really important because if you have any grease, it will stop the egg whites from whipping up and creating your meringue. So, in order to prepare this, I have taken my clean bowl and I have put a little bit of lemon in and wiped that around, and that just gets rid of any potential grease that is inside my bowl. And now I'm all set to make some meringues. So, into my mixing bowl, I'm going to pop in 3 large egg whites, a little tiny pinch of salt, and about half a teaspoon of cream of tartar. Now, cream of tartar in meringues will help stabilize it a little bit, and it'll also help your meringues not weep after. And what weeping is when your meringues are baked, sometimes a little bit of liquid comes out of them and it just doesn't look very nice. So that's just going to prevent that from happening. So that's all ready. So I'm going to start this on a relatively low speed, probably a medium-low kind of speed, just until the eggs start to froth up. Now, to make my meringue, I'm using caster sugar today, and of course I'm using Tate & Lyle. Now, caster sugar is much better for making meringues because they're smaller granules than granulated sugar, so they dissolve more easily. And one of the secrets to making a good meringue is you want your sugar to dissolve in your egg whites. So really important to use a finer sugar like caster sugar, perfect. You can also use golden caster sugar if you want to. That will give you a slightly more subtle caramel flavour to it. But for today, I'm just using your regular white caster sugar. The other nice thing that I like about Tate & Lyle's caster sugar is that it, when it bakes up, it leaves you with a lovely sweet flavour rather than an earthy flavour, which some other sugars can leave you. And that's because it is a cane sugar based rather than a beet sugar. So just to measure it out, I am going to grab my sieve. I'm going to sieve this because I don't want any lumps of sugar at all to go into my egg white mixture when I put it in. So I'm going to measure out 175 grams of sugar. Now we're going to add this in. So I'm going to turn my mixer back on. It's going to go onto a low speed, and I'm going to add the sugar. Now, you want to add the sugar in when you make meringues a little at a time. You can't just dump the whole thing in because it doesn't mix through and dissolve as it goes in. So you want to take a little bit of sugar and kind of drip it in, maybe a teaspoon or so's worth, and you need to wait about 5 or 10 seconds in between each addition until you've put all your sugar in to your meringue mix. So when your meringue is ready, what you are looking for is when it's mixing, it will start to ball up in the inside. But when you lift the whisk, you should have, you can see that little wibbly bit there, that's absolutely fine. But when you turn it upside down, it should just be the very end that turns. Everything else should stand up really nice and stiff. And the same inside your bowl. You can see that it's all standing up. That means my meringue is ready. So what that means now for my sugar is that it should be fully dissolved. My egg whites have whipped up nice and thick, and it's beautiful. You can see how it's lovely and shiny and glossy. That's perfect. My piping bag, I have popped it into a glass and just folded the edge over. And what that's done is it's created a lovely space in the middle for me to put my meringue mixture. So you can see the piping nozzle is in there. I've just folded it over, so that's given me as much space as possible, and that's going to make it lots easier for me to put my meringue into my piping bag. So I'm just going to use a spatula. I'm just going to grab a little bit of meringue. You can see how lovely and beautiful and like a cloud that looks. It's beautiful. I'm just going to pop that in there, and as I put some in, I'm going to push it down the bag all the way down and fill it as much as you can, making sure that you've got that nice lip left to help you so you can roll it up at the top. Before you pipe anything on your baking sheet, if you remember, I've got this ready and prepared. What I'm going to do, if I pull that off for a moment, into the 4 corners of my baking tray, I'm just going to put little splodges of meringue, and what that's going to do is it's just going to, if I pop that down, it's going to hold my parchment paper on the sheet so that it doesn't wriggle around as I'm piping, act a bit as a glue, and it washes off super easy after. Much prefer doing it that way to greasing it. And there you go, that's all ready to be used. It's not going to move around at all. So, using my circles as a guide, start in the middle, and you're basically going to draw a spiral with your meringue right the way to the edge. And once you have got to the edge, go on top of the edge. So you're creating this kind of wall or dam, if you like, with the meringue mixture. I like to create my wall to be about 3 pipes worth tall, and then when I get to the end, you just stop squeezing it and just pull it gradually, very gently, and you'll see it just forms a little tip that you can just tuck in. And that's what I'm going to do all over here, using up all my mixture. And then this is going to bake in my oven. So when I pop it in my oven, I turn my oven down to 100 Celsius, because you don't want your oven to be really hot when you're making anything that's meringue based, because it'll crack, it'll brown it. We don't want any of that. We just want it to dehydrate. We just want to get the moisture out. So this will bake for about 50 minutes, and then I will turn my oven off, but leave them in my oven with the door shut to cool completely. So the best time to make these is actually the day before you need them, so you can leave them overnight in your oven to cool completely. And what that's going to do is allow it to come down gradually to room temperature, so it's not going to crack and it's not going to break or anything like that, because meringues can be quite temperamental once they've been baked. Right, so my meringue nests have baked and they have cooled down in the oven overnight, and they are ready to be filled and enjoyed. So I'm going to prepare my filling ingredients now. So into a mixing bowl, I'm going to pop in some double cream, and to that I'm also going to add a splash of vanilla. And I'm also going to add in some icing sugar. Now, you don't have to add the icing sugar in if you don't want it to sweet the whole dessert, but I'm just going to add just a little bit, just a tablespoon, just for that little bit of added sweetness. Icing sugar is really good to use for icings, obviously buttercreams or something like this when you're putting it into whipped cream, because the granules are much finer, so they will dissolve a lot quicker. I'm just sifting it in. So I'm going to use, you can use a handheld whisk if you want as well. I'm going to use an electric one just because it's a bit quicker. I'm just going to whisk this up until it reaches soft peak. So that is now ready. I'm going to set that aside for a moment, and it's time to chop some strawberries up. And I'm just going to cut this into little chunks. I just want them to be more like bite-sized amounts. Now our strawberries are done, it is time for us to assemble our nests. So, like before, I've got a glass with my piping bag. So my whipped cream, I'm going to put a little bit of it into, you can see it's still quite soft, but that is perfect because it'll thicken actually as I pipe it out as well. So my cream is ready. I'm going to grab a nest and pop it on my plate. First I'm going to pipe a little layer of cream right the way around the bottom. Then we're going to pop a few strawberries on, and we're going to keep layering as much cream over as you'd like, and then finish with some more strawberries. So once you have put all your strawberry pieces in, just for a little bit of extra decoration, if you have any in your garden like I do, I'm going to grab a couple of mint leaves, and I'm just going to push it in to the side just for a little pretty finishing touch. And there you have it, Eton Mess Mini Pavlovas. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget, guys, we want to hear from you if you make this. Do give us a like and a subscribe as well if you have enjoyed today's video and recipe, and hope you will join us next time. Happy baking!